And at that point, it doesn't matter what you say as long as it's not stupid. Okay? You check that one off. Goal 2 is to submit. That'll be the best one if you can get it. But goal 3 is to find out more about them as an editor, because that's going to help you. I would, if I were you, do what I did, which is have a little book. Just like people have a little black book of former loves or people they're interested in, you have a black book of editors. You will have a page for each editor, or at least each publishing house, and you will start writing down the editors, books they've edited, what they've said at conventions, what their editorial style is, what they seem to be looking for, all of those sorts of things. So that you then have your book full of information. And you can get that by saying, what are you working on? What new authors have you picked up recently? Why did you pick them up? Tell me about the book. I want to read it. That I want to read what you're working on is very good, because you are less me-focused and more finding out focused. Okay? At the end of the conversation, or you can approach it how you want. Some of you may be through the Marriott School, and they'll teach you high-powered ways to do stuff better than this. Probably listen to your professors there instead. But I would say at the end, what I usually did was, I have a book that I think you would like. Would you mind if I sent it to you? 9 times out of 10, they said, yeah, sure. Here's my card. Or, yeah, sure. Information's on the website. Usually they gave me a card. Said, yeah, send me 3 chapters and a synopsis. Sounds good. Once in a while they said, tell me about it. Where is that? Pitch! That's why you have the pitch ready, so you don't go, All right. We'll talk about pitches next. So have your pitch ready. Yeah, Mark.
Does all this go for agents as well?
Yeah. All goes for agents as well.
You're fine.
So let's go for questions about this stuff before I get into some pitch sort of things. This is the big 2x4 of information with which I've just smacked you.
Are there any differences with agents? You're dealing with an agent and they seem from your description to be more reticent.
They are a little more reticent, not necessarily more reticent, but they don't generally go sit on the panels. What I've just found about agents is that they aren't as accessible that way, but they're actually there networking more consciously. The editors are like, yeah, if people come to me and want to send me books, great. The agents are actively searching for really good authors, but they're doing it, they tend to be much better. Agents tend to be more Marriott School type people, okay? And editors tend to be more Big Bang Theory type people, okay? They do this, they both do it because they love it, but if you're going to be an agent is a confrontational business, all right? You are negotiating contracts. You are the loud voice of anger when your author wants something changed. You don't become an agent if you are an extreme introvert who can't handle conflict, okay? You do become an editor sometimes if you're an extreme introvert and can't handle conflict, all right? So that different personality type, there's going to be lots of bleed, okay? But those are kind of the archetypes for the editors and agents, and you will find them. I should mention up here the difference between editors and publishers. Does anyone know the difference? Because I didn't when I first started.
Publisher can fire the agent?
Yeah, the editor, you mean? Yeah.
Or the editor, yeah.
Publishers are not editors. Publishers do not, sometimes one person will hold both roles, but the publisher is the business person who runs a business. For instance, Tom Doherty. Tom Doherty started Tor Books in the early 80s, maybe late 70s. After a long history in publishing, he founded the company, and he hired Harriet McDougall, Robert Jordan's wife, who wasn't his wife then, hadn't met him yet, hired her to be his editorial director and acquire books for him to sell. Okay? Those are 2 very different roles. Now, a lot of times people will cross over between those roles, and you'll have someone like the guy from Pyre. I know his name. Lou Anders. Lou Anders, who is both. Because it's an imprint, he's wearing both hats. But at the bigger companies, the publishers can do anything. They can buy your book. They're really powerful. But shooting for a publisher is kind of a hard pass because they usually aren't going to read any slush. That's not their job. Their job is to market and sell the books and run the business. It's the editors they hire to do that. Okay? So, but differences, agents. Agents tend to be more like talent scouts. They're there at the con scouting for the talent. Whereas the editors tend to be fishermen, like who are just got a big, net and they're throwing it out and pulling a bunch of stuff in and saying, is this a good fish? No. Is this a good fish? No. Is this a good fish? And the agents are like the sharks in the water hunting the good fish. Okay?
Do people usually get agents or editors first?
It's an excellent question. Do people usually get agents or editors first? I'm going to give you a gummy because that was a good question. And it depends on who you talk to. My experience has been it's about 50-50. If you get a good agent, you will probably sell your book. But getting a good agent is hard. You can, in science fiction and fantasy, sell your book without an agent. In children's, you almost can't. All right? Because it is more corporate. There is a school of thought that says you should ignore any time an editor says they do not take unagented submissions. There is this thing in New York where unagented submissions, meaning some publishing houses just don't look at submissions that aren't from agents. The good news is if you meet one of those editors at a con and you do this whole thing and they say send it to me, that's no longer an unsolicited submission. It's a solicited submission. In fact, if an editor ever says to you, yeah, I'll look at it, even whatever they say, you send it in the mail the next day, overnight it. Okay? You don't go with the manuscript, but you jump on it when you can send them one. And you go ahead and write requested material on there as long as you can construe it as being requested.
Would it be favorable to have like a little SD disk with your manuscript on it? That if it's solicited, you can hand it to them?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Never give them anything at a con unless they ask for it. The reason being, yeah, they don't want to, they're there networking, but they're not there reading. They want to get back to the office and have it there. And if you give it to them, you're just asking them to schlep it back to the office and remember where it is and not lose it or things like that. Just, I would say no. You can have one. Just on the 1 in a million chance they say, you got a copy? They might. They probably won't, but they might. Because they could be like, I'm bored today. I don't have anything to read. You got a copy? Bing! You could be just fine with that if you wanted to, but never unless they ask that.
And you said overnight it,
Yeah.
where most of them are taking email submissions now.
Yeah,
Just still overnight or?
Well, if they let you send it physically, I would probably send it physically because this is a slow-moving business. People are still used to reading physically, and I would go ahead and send it physically with with the little SD card or something like that attached. Or send it physically and by email or something, but it's so much harder to ignore something physical. That probably will eventually go away, but for now, I would go ahead and do both if I could.
That was my question.
Okay, yeah. If they only take e-submissions, that's going to be just fine, and it's easier on you. You don't have to do what I did and print out a manuscript for $100 and ship it for 20 and then have it disappear into the void.
What about some rules for the format that you send it to them? I mean, is there only a certain font and a certain size?
That's a good
And
question. I'm going to throw you one of yours back now. Woo! Hey, that was a good in. I'll throw one to you because you had a good question and you didn't ask it. And you've had like 5. Okay, so
Because I already have a business card to pay for my tickets to the conferences.
once upon a time, there was a very set way to do it. There is no longer. I'm gonna say that. Don't put in the weird font, but they can change it in 10 seconds, and they probably have a macro that does it. So just don't do anything weird unless they suggest. If your default these days is different than what it used to be when I was breaking it. Your default should probably just be whatever, Times New Roman or Calibri, whatever the one that, 11 point double spaced, always double space it, and put numbers, page numbers on.
Whatever their writing guidelines are, follow them.
Yeah, do follow them, whatever the writing guidelines are. But if you're doing e-submissions, the writing guidelines, they've all begun getting relaxed. But as long as you're not crazy, you're gonna probably be okay. Do go and look and see if they have writer's guidelines, and just do what they say. It'll take you 10 seconds, and it'll make you look more professional. Okay? Other questions?